경제 정보 조정 힘이 정도는 모놈 정보가 잡다 나그당은 전도 실무 돈바도 제잔라기 정도로 저러더니 정감서 저걸 두지 전로에나 지면 분조장랑 소랑 공제 도반 보러 신지로
Now let us begin our class. We're going to study a text that's composed by Mipa Rinpoche. The title is Stream of Amrita That Cures All Ailments. Before the actual teaching, I would like to give you the oral transmission of a sadhana of unfettering bondage. In Larungar, the practitioners are required to chant the mantra of unfettering for 10,000 times within 4 to 5 days. Even if you can't finish 10,000 times within 4 to 5 days, you can try to finish it as soon as possible. This particular mantra had given to us by Phuntsok Rinpoche back to 1998. Also, again, back in 2001. I believe many of you had received this particular mantra last year or the year before as well. I translated this particular sadhana a few years ago. In fact, many years ago, but I think the translation is not good enough, so I am retranslating it. The current group practice is that we're going to practice around noon for an hour or two. You can practice together as a group practice, or you can practice at home by listening to the radio. So we will practice today and tomorrow for a longer period of time, especially since it's the 15th day of the Tibetan lunar calendar. Why are we practicing this? Since this is a very profound and secretive practice. But I think it's good to give you the sadhana because, first of all, Phuntsok Rinpoche had given this particular sadhana to us before. On top of that, we have a large sangha who are practicing this. Therefore, though it is a secretive practice, I have made this available. I didn't specifically request you to keep it secretive. What's the meaning of the sadhana of unfettering bondage? What does it mean by bondage? Well, there are all kinds of bondage. Bondage given by, for example, human beings, other people, or various kinds of afflictions, or the non-humans, or the evil spirits, and so on and so forth. Whatever kind of bondage you're experiencing that stops you from being free to practice, then you can practice this particular sadhana so you can gain freedom again. Otherwise, you'll be imprisoned by all kinds of bondages. But once practicing this sadhana, you will be freed from the imprisonment. Also, just like how the horse will no longer be reined by straps, they can be finally free. Therefore, this particular sadhana can unfetter all kinds of bondage. In the Dark Age, many people are bound by their afflictions. Some are by other people, some are by non-human, some are by all kinds of other, for example, spirits or even different kinds of force or energies. Therefore, by practicing this particular sadhana is really important so that you will gain freedom. Many of our practitioners had practiced this before. The particular sadhana, you can uptake it as your daily practice, or you can practice whenever you can. You can practice it simply by chanting the mantra, or practice it according to the sadhana. I think in the next 2 days I will provide you my new translation of the sadhana into Chinese. This sadhana is a sadhana that supplicates to the deity of Manjushri, a variation or a manifestation of Manjushri, that is Chujin Dorje, whose color is yellowish red.
Ki gyang lar tongba ngang le rangam dan da rambo che na zo ji ro lan chang tana de ba se mo pa ma kar mo da ma tong dan ji ke sar la da yer chen gor nya gang yer dan ji tang da sa won mong man ser le gon cho ba bam cho do sem chen ji ton je ser ndi de sa won mong na tan ba go de je va yong se tero le ka ji ge de jong ba tam ji yi xi ji ke ji ban ja ho do ji cho jong do ji ke do mar ser ker ko mo jon nim dang chen nim ma shi zubjidan barwa jar chi shoni joni zigjan zandan hui ji jimzi ba ra ri zir ban ngadang dan jan ma tur do chen wa tor zu jir se morum bo je do na nyang ko ogru joni gyan ba da re ji ma yo da dar ji la ko so tar na rum bo je gyan dam je ji chi ba chogdum zi jang zin bi jar jan chog ji de jang so ba tam ji ji wo zir ko la be be Chayem chujin ji xiao jie bi mo tang de yang ba yong bin de chen ji o bu hu mo ye wa de ge zong win de ma nian ji ta de ka ji wi dang na san ji dam ji ji yi xie chen bu do ji gu ba ren tan ba jian do ji ji mo zhong ge ji xiang ren ge ge le xiong wu guo zi ji zha yi xi ji me ji rab de ba ru gu na ji ba zhan ba zam ji geng do bin chong nam yi jin de zuo ren de bi de ni jian de sa ru cha ra on kar bom ren ba a mar bo te ge hong hong bin san ba le gu den zhuo bi zhuo ji san ji dam ji ji ge zong Egyptian the Mali dine yige samna tambe dorje ko zon de ji da ne de shinji lava ya ne sam ji sa won da to romam le go zeram chube chobji de zon ji jara de no je ba ham je den ja tam ba jin bi do dorje number banzer samayan za ji bi chen zhang za hong wan hong ji bi dam tu ba dang ni zme ber ji la ri to go zer ji chobji san ji dam ji ji ring in kor nam je ba shen zhang de nam ji ji de zon ko que quand je m'attends, j'ai l'homme ailleurs, le vérité de Bordeaux, monsieur Barsover, Jerry, Rogan, Wangala, Namjantela, Nambem, il était pas ma carbone de ma diété, d'Avachama, maybe. Kin Kuriki, Ruiz, took to mon master, le Jim Chang, young Gordon Corale, was a Hodameba. Kajib them from Papa Damji, Nibim Chobamber, to them Jiruker, Simpson Tamji, Rubat Hatojan, Jaro Dorje, Comanto, Coman Lapcoto was it, certainly, some Monadam. Was someone Rambranda J. Bala, Tumbe, Tamji, Eugene, the Brusan, La Uman Shembarada Madram, Uman Shembarada Madram Zonji, he gave. He gave Jenny the Bichon Pound, but my own Jenny Berlong Rajao, Tumdrum. Choba Jim Jorasham, La Shinji, Love de Nazoji, Nazoji, Burwa Gamma, Nazoji, Burwa Gamma, the Nagum Jordan, the Condom and Jordan, Kanam Dejo, Chinosam, Choberjam Zum, Jero Anna, Rana, Banza, Sara Banza, Manga, Rasamaja, Sabarana, and Mangagana. Kang Pada Suhaji, Juna Mandarin Berla, Changzheng Zhong Do Jim Cho, Jambayan Toboche, Huo Jimboche Jobam, the Mother Totem Zalaji Zodi to Nerang, Yeda Gondo Bim, Jom, near the Sura of Nachendo Bitamba, Nibber Suranger, Jambazam, the Varchet number, Yervim too. 톱정 다를 기블라나메 비상집도 또 그런 결혼도 정 정주기 체디 있나 도소라노 산지근지 이질거 저건 조정도 제람 견전이 밤 종합에 뭔지 듣듬 진보전을 더더 무산더 남기 마르나 또 레년바 숑 샤도는 은세르 마담만 숑원수 이 샤던 지던 정화당 샤노상 거든지 정당 난당 막상 저 샤던 거랑한 비교 점니 wakchuk cheba nama rangzhan namdak chujiyo yang jangzhul mebi nganya da dartanya da zhorom zodo shenjibshan churnyambo waro lamchuk jiji shonamji mamdan chonam kengi jangnom jingmek dorjir top top zodo ji nyangnek sorab da lamdan ji le tik chok nyamzhandam jebi wazir karo do Tokpa mebab dirzi rangzhin janghuakda mebab zhongde dagdang mungshi lila tambe tserib tokme jib zhiban tada zhibadang tamsing nyamchuk zhibdang maksang na dun warzi chadab shirdang karar ngambi kyun tamchadang kyabar mamdang maman jib shadab chijor koksum jangzha Namba gomchi ba tamchinya agza dam charwa star darkaji ka chordeli shirun dang ishi jib dirzi temga jagro dorji shindam tada rangar gilla jigne lancho ono ba gangi gyama zigvi rangzhin janda gyarwar san la sarngagdang 장줄 기흥을 잡모 지르데 진이 잡다버죠 만셴바라다 마들맘소 만셴바라돔도 엄다란다라야 모잔 좀 바란데 이소 지르다 마셴 거와르드 라브라 샤르테 땅는 무스 리양와당 릭박사라다 냠데와다 화와 소르 만음도 장 조라다 냠면엘레 타라다 잘리게라다 치 시바당 남랑와다 녀다샤라다 따르샤라다 똥바바라소 바게 나좀 정으로 göro terter jonel gosum gimamtam bichok de görwe nagdon verchi trameshiba tamchelle tarde shind dejan kara da khwaru zombur gerjam sambanrabi yondan khodame ba tobran göro tartım çoftu soğdan ne hartendam jibago de generala tembe dichingi labır sambir jiz tarjig mubinganda nyambra mubinganda nyambra jala gi hujan shibar jobr shago 따라는 소 정주지 흥금도 자호로 화옥 직접지 길려 송바 정주지 흥담지지 derborten데 란든 측정마든 딕심도 또르납 정화 탐칠레 쪼른 열 거금맘 거왕 흥역진에 건금 골랍더나디 녀덥 정화 건레 쪼르로 끼금 뽕버럽더나 직바 탐칠레 종어를 열 란든 흥역비 천동남 nga르킴 바소 서버셰데 란든 흥역비 Termir kiwi gur kinab jumab dever zarver ger taqdablenab jambi rig tamchid le rabt chorun geroji sonso dinab jambi rig tamchid la muban kone vlavadan vamba chobzan ko chivli Lapke terkili dersir gin vabra samajan debi chundong jan chishibadan shemagam saqzamagam yonkar soglable depse Zunva napa soglap chapatan shaqtid yopi ne soqtorwa gama chongshalar ngabji de dabad chongkala ngxam tabatan dugba la ngne dugba dan kirgimdan ma shi jola jide le de shaba sogjir gone nagdo var karang amba jaqton sogji jamba dam jori le ramjim jeron joro shadang tondi zumba la shaqda damji de chatte shadaq damji chatte chapchi ji be chardo joron joro kongur koksam jama de la nima chenji jibartar de ron me jam devi Kurkup mamjongwa tamchin do shinab zon chigchuk su tsapa gam tapo juk tu tsapa le chorab jenda dema thag devi ne pazum zogba amjongwaran gyurvi shir shinda kar chego ka te gingi nyamlenda dagnim chogzhong dorje gombar do narton bangal rimboche na zo sogdan ranir kaji ke devjang shaba sogdan rang tegar pa makar boj khabjera ma to jan rago lagba landalap te ne tetsum me berler na zo jumar ngungi legi gong lilar kyun chagba dan semles marungwa da dingor jewa dan tonyamba shirdan karangam baksur marungwa ta kyang iber de jenir karab zong bu tsendalam nyor she nam chartin ngamba jewa mu chego de tsirjin jumne mandpa jongzi kyang yoba mayin be chirtan do bi ton la Sur tab jan amugba mayan var sarngq leba majiki kyan kantar amugbe lernje ba ton mazawo di shirde tabndo no yujin no tar chipchi jin chamar shiba yende lagdab langwe ichi birin gerwanda no rangla guba kyabrjan shon tse lagba la sorab tabne tse rab tse shamju gerdi yartse ger trashi chuglang go rchu demchuk pupchang da mapam jahur dorji jarwa gelgam per chig warchede jengir 근래 조르 각스름 창조 깽은 근래 타르 jamnan 따땅 충근 디튠 지 good 저 까르존 지금에도 대춘 토브 남간 자때 끈끈 청와 매도 도진 자때 시경 지금만 이제 노른 자때 화르기 워즈름 바 밥만 자때 균 저 유공 저 사마야 망가람 세랑 강섬 도tum 다르진자 가르친 끈끈 무츠 죽스 이제 도 돈당 소는 받면 현지전 자고르 고즈 냐라 지기르지 샹즈 다르가 비치 니르던라 마팜베 와야 진짜 전부 전
Well, I have already given you all the oral transmissions today.
라포사는 요 간제마
Well, how do the senior practitioners feel? You're probably way too stern by this point. Since all of you are sitting at the front, we may not be able to resume that kind of youthful liveliness as before. Well, we will have the class as today, tomorrow, and the day after. Today is Tuesday, correct? Wednesday and Thursday. And Friday, Saturday, we will resume our class on the Shurangama Sutra. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we will have class on the wish-fulfilling treasury. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we will have the class on Shurangama Sutra. This is our schedule. Continue from now. The first 3 days, treasury of wish-fulfilling jewel, and then the next 3 days beginning from Thursday is Shurangama Sutra. This is our plan for now. Also, as I said, that the classes this time is not going to be broadcasted online, is not going to be propagated anywhere outside the Larungar. It is not that we don't wish to propagate the Dharma nor to liberate and benefit sentient beings, but out of various external reasons, if the classes were to be spread too far and wide, the religious policies nowadays, also various kinds of conditions within Larungar, do not permit us to do that. If we were to have too vast of an activity, then it may squeeze our own space to survive. So people outside of Larungar, I think it is the time for them to review the previous taught classes. And there are large numbers of it. For now, for this year, for the first half of the year, this is our plan. And of course, this is the draft of the plans, and things are subject to change at any time. And it is hard to say if we will be able to complete all the courses that we planned for. Various kinds of things have changed in various aspects, and conditions have changed, and there are different kinds of obstacles, inner outer obstacles, and so on. But we're trying to study and trying to study the Dharma, trying to teach the Dharma, and we should cherish this opportunity. It's important to cherish this opportunity. With these kinds of mindset, we will then have strength and courage to continue on our path. This is our preparation. During the classes of the stream of Amrita that cures all ailments, we do not have any after-class presentations. After this particular class, we will begin our classes on the Shurangama Sutra. And our after-class presentation, students can sit around the rims or the non-central area of the shrine hall. Currently, we can only have all of our senior students who are above 60 years of age to study in the shrine hall. They are the central focus, the central population that can receive the teachings. In the past, we don't really pay too much attention to the senior practitioners over here who are over 60 years of age. But recently, because this is a new regulation, so all the senior students nowadays can finally feel very proud of their age. From time to time, we pay lip service by saying that, oh, you're a senior practitioner, I should take care of you. You're quite aged, I should take care of you. But I don't think we actually do that. Therefore, this year, I think it's quite a good turning point that we start to take care of the senior practitioners here. For me, myself, this year is a turning point for me as well. And I think this particular regulation fits into the symbolic meaning of my turning point. Many people came here when they were still very young, but now since they've already aged, they are well adorned with wrinkles. Whenever I visit any centers outside, I don't really feel very touched whenever I see young practitioners, but whenever I meet those senior practitioners, especially when they're really aged and when they're big and aged, they carry certain kinds of power and magnificence, and that could help me to develop a sense of faith. So I shouldn't elaborate too much on that. Let us get into this particular text on stream of Amrita that cures all ailments. Why did I decide to translate this and give the teaching on this? I believe the majority of you are still considered as healthy, but look at our world now. Illness is something that we cannot avoid. In the samsara of birth, old age, sickness, and death, all of these above stated phenomena cannot be avoided. As mundane beings, we get ill, even if we're temporarily healthy, or sometimes we're suboptimal in terms of our health. So illness is definitely something that we have to face eventually. But as practitioners, what should we do in order to face those ailments? Over here, the particular title has been translated by me in the way that it would be easier for you to understand. Therefore, I used the Chinese term that is cures all ailments. However, what it means is to transform illness onto the path of enlightenment. It is to say that if you can cure the illness of your mind, then you will be able to cure the illness of your physical body. So I think that is more important. Therefore, I would encourage all of you to study it with great attentiveness. The teaching is very short. The text is really short, so we should use about 3 classes to study it, and we should have plenty of time. Why is this teaching so profound? Whenever we have illness, we want to cure it. However, if our method is wrong, then maybe we will get adverse and harmful results. There are possibilities like such. On the other hand, if we were to use the method of practice during the time of illness, a sense of joy would naturally arise. If your mind is joyful, very quickly your illness will get better, it will heal very soon. Even if you won't get well very soon, illness doesn't create detrimental consequences to you anymore. Your mind would always and constantly abide in a sense of joy. Therefore, whenever you get ill, I think you should contemplate to yourself what kind of method you're using to cure your illness. Of course, I'm not saying that you shouldn't see any doctors. You can seek all kinds of help that you need, let it be Western medicine or Chinese traditional medicine or the Tibetan traditional medicine. But other than that, we have to learn to tame our mind as well. If you can tame your mind, then even if you get severe illness, it's not going to create a great deal of negative impact on your life. If you can turn the mind onto the path of enlightenment, if you can develop a kind of courageous mind when facing such adversity, then whatever kinds of sickness that you have is not going to be detrimental to you. Nowadays, we have all kinds of knowledges available on the market. For example, the knowledge of nutrition, the knowledge of being healthy, all kinds of theories, all kinds of knowledge that's out there. We're not saying no to all of them, but I'm simply stating that the Dharma could help you to transform all kinds of suffering onto the path of enlightenment. I'm sure many of you have a deep experience of that. Whatever kinds of detrimental situations you're in, the Dharma is able to help you. For example, I remember the great earthquake in Yushu province, in Yushu region, where many people died. In order to help the survived, many of the psychotherapists were recruited from all different places in China to Yushu area. But then they realized that people over there, they don't really need that because they were Buddhist practitioners. Mainly Tibetans were living there. As you probably know, that region, the infrastructure, the weather, the resources, and so on and so forth are not that abundant around that region. If people were not spiritual, if they don't have any spiritual strength, then after such detrimental disaster, the consequences could be quite dire. However, people living in that region, because they've learned how to adjust their mind, to tame their mind since a very young age, because they believe in the result of cause and effect, because they believe that cause and effect is true, because they believe that the reason that they suffer from such a great earthquake is because they must have done something in the past. For the same reason, whenever you are facing any kinds of disease, any kinds of sickness, if you were to be diagnosed with AIDS, with COVID, with cancer, whatever kinds of diagnosis you receive from the hospital, at that time, The ordinary people who had never went through the spiritual training, they would not be able to handle that consequences. They would not be able to handle that announcement for such bad news. But for people who went through the spiritual training, who understand and believe in cause and effect, they would be able to understand that the result of illness is no other than the maturation of the past causes, let it be harming the other sentient beings in this life or the past lives, or any other kinds of causes that could lead to this result. Therefore, they would be able to gladly face whatever result there is. Of course, I understand that nobody really wants to get ill. Nobody wants to feel uncomfortable. However, it is during such times, it is the time for your spiritual practice to come into your life. It is a test for you to examine your spiritual practice. At that time, for example, practices that you've received from Acharya, from your teachers, you can practice the Tonglen, the taking and sending, or any other kinds of practices that you've received. As a practitioner, as a genuine practitioner, you would be able to transform whatever situations that you're facing into the path of enlightenment. You would be able to transform whatever situation that you're facing for the benefit of your spiritual practice. Whatever kinds of situation can be a favorable condition to you. It is somewhat similar to poison. In fact, nobody wants to take poison, but poison can be transformed into something that is drinkable, that is beneficial if there are people or other materials that could transform this poison. Similarly, suffering is just like illness. Nobody really wants suffering. Nobody wants suffering at all. But just as what we studied last year, during our classes on transforming happiness and suffering onto the path of enlightenment, I believe many of you who listened to that class felt that it was really beneficial. So I encourage all of you to study that text again and again so that it will become part of you. You will take that teaching into your heart. Only listening to it once is not enough at all. For this particular text, composed by Mipa Rinpoche, is something that you should study it again and again as well. Because when you get ill, this is the Amrita that would cure your illness. When I first started translating this particular text, I didn't feel that it was profound to that extent, so to speak. However, I remember that back in February, when I started translating, the more I got into the translation and got into this text, the more I developed faith. And back in February, when I was translating it, I genuinely hoped that I would get ill so that I can get the opportunity to practice. After my aspiration, I indeed got ill. I couldn't sleep well or eat well. There's that kind of pain or unease. However, I think my mind at that time was definitely different than people who never practice or know this kind of teaching. This particular teaching is rather short. We will finish it within 3 classes, but it is really profound because it inherits 3 main points. The first point is that illness is virtuous. It has merit. The second class, we will talk about how we should view illness as your guru. Whenever you see your guru, you would ask your guru to give you teachings, to give you spiritual guidance. That's why lots of people would like to run around and to follow their teachers everywhere. They want to follow the teacher is not because they are attracted by the physical body of the teacher, rather it is because the teacher has wisdom in their mind stream and they will be able to give teachings to the fellow students. So similar to a good teacher, illness can also give you teachings on the spiritual path. And then the third point that we will cover on the third day is that we will talk about how illness is a good tool for you to practice the 6 paramitas. Now, knowing that illness is virtuous is just like a guru, and it could be a good path and tool for you to practice the 6 paramitas, then why wouldn't you be joyous when you're ill? Therefore, after studying this particular text, you will no longer be upset and quite depressed whenever you get ill. You would rather be very joyous. Why is illness virtuous? People would think, why would you say that? How could illness be virtuous? Illness is something that destroys me, or illness is something that harms me. But I think we should understand everything that happens in our world in 2 folds. Everything has the 2 aspects, and we have to look at it as a whole. As a practitioner, however, we should definitely look at the part that would benefit us from a spiritual point of view. When we're healthy, we probably won't be able to practice as well as when we are ill. Or you probably wouldn't have even tread onto the path of enlightenment if you never got ill. I know that kind of practitioners. I know many practitioners are like that. The reason they stepped onto the spiritual path is because they got ill. That's how adversity can be transformed onto the path of enlightenment. Therefore, that aspect is considered as the meritorious aspect or virtuous aspect of illness. For people with wisdom, they will be able to recognize the true face of any adversity. It could be facing a foe. Of course, nobody likes to have enemies standing in front of them. But if you were to see your enemy standing right in front of you and practice the 6 paramitas or practice the impermanence and viewing that the friends and foes are impermanent in this world as well. Now, if you remember the story of Gyalongma Pomo, she was infected with leper. And by relying on her illness and practice with her illness, she attained enlightenment. Illness itself doesn't have any virtue. For people without any spiritual practice, without any understanding, then illness itself is not virtuous. However, if you can practice upon it, if you can practice with it as a stepping stone on the path of enlightenment, it is virtuous. Today we are studying this particular text with a title called Stream of Amrita, or Stream of Nectar that cures all disease. Everyone wants to cure their illness. Therefore, I picked this particular word cure because it's easy to understand. And the stream of Amrita Amrita is something that is used by the celestial beings. It can cure all kinds of illness. It's like the elixir. For example, when the celestial beings are in battles, even if they are beheaded, by using the nectar, their illness or their physical harm can be cured. Another particular type of Amrita is that the water that can be blessed by mantras. For example, you can practice the mantra of unfettering for 7 times and then blow air to the water, and then you can drink that water. I know Lama Achu used to drink the Amrita water in the morning as the first thing that they would do in the morning. You can either drink the water that's been blessed by the Sangha, by the Guru, or by chanting the mantra and then blow air to it, or you can put the Amrita pills into the water and then drink it. People nowadays, I think you probably don't know how to use the Amrita pills. However, it's better to mix the Amrita into water or take it. That would be very helpful for your illness. Even in a worldly sense, this is something that we usually take. In Tibet, the practitioners usually would put lots of Amrita pills into their little locket. And during emergency situations, right away they'll take out their Amritas and start to take it in or mix it in the water and then drink it. It seems simple, but within that little pill, there are lots of different powers and different energy. I believe we also talked about the special powers of the Vajra knot. When Golok was in battle with Dege, someone wearing that Vajra knot was untouched throughout that battle. So it's kind of a protecting object or an object that would provide the protection to you. Similarly, Amrita water or Amrita itself can also provide such kind of protection. Other sacred objects, such as even the sweat from a great master, such as Mipa Rinpoche, there was the story where his sweat cured the illness of someone who was gravely sick. In mainland China, there is another monk whose name is Jigong. It is said that when someone who is ill drank the bath water of monk Jigong, they were cured right away. So there are all kinds of miraculous things like that. I believe back in 2002, I translated the biography of Mipa Rinpoche composed by Ponso Rinpoche. There are lots of miraculous stories about Mipa Rinpoche, especially when there were different descriptions about his enlightened activities and so on. Things that I think ordinary people won't be able to believe. Within that biography, it is stated that Mipa Rinpoche was very sophisticated in even the medical knowledge, and his teaching of Tibetan traditional medicine is still studied till now. Therefore, from the medical point of view or from the spiritual point of view, this particular teaching is just like a stream of nectar, a stream of Amrita, where after you take this Amrita, your illness will be dispelled. So Mipa Rinpoche pointed out that his pith instruction is just like Amrita. The water that you take in, and then you will be able to get your illness cured. For those of you who study this particular teaching, all of your illness will be cured in such a way. We can see that nowadays we have lots of diseases around the world. Let's look at the world now. The war between Russia and Ukraine, it's just like apocalypse is approaching. The pricing for food as well as for gas has peaked. All kinds of disease such as COVID that's been torturing human beings for the past 2 years. We have 7 billion people on this earth. The recent number is that about 500 million people have already infected by COVID. That means 5 out of 70 people. On top of that, 6 million people had died because of COVID. It is not to say that the nectar will be able to cure your illness right away, but at least once you get ill, you won't be so anxious and so fearful. Whenever you get ill, whatever kinds of illness, after studying this text, I think your mindset will be completely changed. You will be able to know how to work with it, and you won't be able to feel fear and anxiety. I myself, I've been battling with all kinds of illness throughout my life. So I've been using those as opportunities to tame my mind. I don't want to say that I've been practicing all the time, but I definitely took advantage of those opportunities to tame my mind. So I'm really grateful to all the illness, without which I won't be able to have any opportunity to practice those teachings. Also, I think illness are not that scary if we have the courage to face them. Because illness itself, though it appears to be completely unwanted, unpleasant, and even horrifying experience, however, if you can develop a holistic point of view to look at illness, then your reaction will be completely different than the ordinary beings. Because ordinary people, when they get ill, they would be sad and they would have fear, and then they would be anxious and even depressed. And then the more they prone to lead their mind to that negativity, the worse the illness would be piled on. However, as a practitioner, if we can look at illness from a holistic point of view, if we can see the other side of illness that can be a stepping stone onto our path of enlightenment, then we will be able to be much more calm. Just as the experienced practitioners, they would see illness as the maturation of the past karma. Unlike the non-practitioners, they would think that, why me? Why did I get ill? Why everyone else is healthy but I am ill? My bad luck. I'm so unfortunate. I've been doing so many good things, but look at me, I am ill. There are, of course, the not so good or not so experienced practitioners. They will forget about all the teachings at the time of during the time they are ill. They would no longer believe in cause and effect. They no longer believe in karma. They no longer believe in virtuous actions anymore. But as the experienced practitioners, or as practitioners who study this particular text and take it into their heart, then they know that it is the time for them to practice good deeds and to practice all kinds of purifying or confession practices. They also would know that it is because of the karma is real. The past causes now have come to a maturation. And then they can make aspiration to attain enlightenment. Then illness becomes meaningful. Sometimes I think to myself that back in 2002, when I got really ill, I decided to translate the extensive biography of Shakyamuni Buddha because I was preparing for my death. And sometimes I think to myself, if I were not ill at that time, I probably wouldn't be able to translate the whole extensive biography of Shakyamuni Buddha. I'm not boasting on how great of a practitioner I am. I'm simply stating that illness has its virtues if we know how to use it. That being said, I'm not saying that, oh, please let me get ill, and then right away when you get illness, you feel that, oh, no, I don't want to get ill. I'm not saying that you have to invite illness in such an earnest aspiration. But I'm saying that now you're healthy, that's wonderful, engage in practice. But be prepared when you get ill, when you get certain kinds of sickness, maybe your ears or eyes, or you won't be able to move. All kinds of illness may come, but you need to prepare yourself before they come. We have to prepare for all kinds of circumstances and possibilities, just as I know someone from my hometown who couldn't walk because of their spine problem, and now after operation, he unfortunately I don't think he can walk anymore. So we should prepare for all kinds of things that may happen. We have to be prepared mentally. But after knowing that illness has its virtue, then we are well prepared for the future. After today's class, if you can turn your mind to think that, oh, illness is also good, it's also virtuous. Even if I get ill, even if I have stomach ache or headache or any kinds of illness, other people can congratulate you and saying that, oh, that's great, you have opportunity to practice. If you get COVID, cancer, any infectious illness, you can congratulate yourself by saying that, oh, that's great. Wow, I haven't started the actual text yet. So let me begin. Now let us begin our actual class on stream of Amrita that cures all disease. This is composed by Mipa Rinpoche. First is the homage line. Pay homage to the Guru, King of Medicine Tathagata. Before composing any text, usually the author would pay homage to the deity or the Guru. Usually we would chant the Medicine Buddha's mantra or chant the Medicine Buddha's sutra and prostrate to the Medicine Buddha. I think Medicine Buddha should be placed in hospitals as well. Chanting the mantra when ill is also really important. Because of his unusual aspiration of the past lifetimes, then by the power of aspiration and the power of chanting the mantra of the King of Medicine Buddha, illness can be dispelled. It would be helpful to both the spiritual or physical health. As I said the other day, the Tibetan, the Chinese traditional medicine, as well as the Western medicine, any people working in those fields, if you have the ability to serve the Sangha, it would be really meritorious. During the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, he himself often served the others with the sickness. So I hope people with this kind of profession and talent, then you should try your best to serve the Sangha in such a way with your professional knowledge. I think nowadays we're getting better. We use all kinds of methods, such as the massage and physiotherapy, using the Chinese traditional medicine. During COVID, many people also said that the traditional Chinese medicine really helped. So I hope by studying this text, many of our Sangha members who are well versed in medicine, you should definitely try your best to serve the Sangha. That would be very meritorious. And then the next verse says that the most supreme in eradicating suffering, I pay homage to the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. So it means that the most supreme in eradicating suffering in this world are the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Therefore, I pay homage to them. Let it be physical illness or mental illness or any kinds of suffering, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are really swift and helpful in eradicating their suffering. I know lots of people who were ill before, and then they cured their illness by chanting the mantra or the sutra or doing all kinds of meritorious deeds. There are people like that. Therefore, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they are the only ones in this world that could help the sentient beings to cure all of their illness to the absolute, in the absolute sense, to pacify and cure all the illness of the sentient beings who are struggling in the quagmire of suffering. Therefore, Mipham Rinpoche composed this text that is the stream of nectar that is filled with wisdom. This particular text is definitely filled with lots of pithy instructions. Longchenpa, in the treasury of wish fulfilling, he also included many practices in the actual practice instructions on how to cure all kinds of illness, including the instructions on exercise and different various aspects of curing illness. So, yes, supplication and paying homage and mantras are important. However, that is not enough. You also have to do other things, such as taking pills and your medicine and your exercise, your lifestyle, and so on and so forth. The text over here says that when a practitioner undergoes torment caused by illness, he shall train the mind and practice by relying upon illness in the following ways in order to purify obstacles, accumulate merit, and forever part from the mud of illness. When we look at ourselves, we don't have such kind of ability and strength to practice in this way. However, this is the possibility that we could practice by relying upon illness. Not only we could practice by relying on illness, we can follow the ways that's stated below, such as purify the obstacles that's being accumulated for lifetimes, and we can accumulate all kinds of merit. Also, all of these can help us to forever part from the mud of illness and samsara. As practitioners, after receiving such profound teachings, if you can practice it, we should be very ashamed of ourselves. The teaching seems very easy. If you were to just tell yourself again and again, oh, illness is good, illness is good, it doesn't help at all. So you have to embody the teaching. Then illness can be transformed onto the path of enlightenment. If you only talk the talk but not walk the walk, then everyone can talk the talk. The majority of ordinary beings are mostly at that level. They can talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Therefore, they cannot get into that deep understanding of this practice. The Dharma is genuine and it is true. This teaching is true. It does not need any logic. It does not need any inference to come to the conclusion that this is correct. For example, the truth of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Are those real? Are those true? Are those 8 kinds of sufferings true? Are those real? We don't need any inference or logic to see and to know that they're real and they're true. Whenever we talk about impermanence, the impermanence of the animate and the inanimate world, the impermanence of the seasons, are they real? Are they true? Yes, they're true as well. Unlike the Western logic, where they talk again and again from this point and from that point, and everything has to go through very complex inference. The Buddha taught the simple and straightforward truth. We don't even need to go through all the inference of the inner, outer, the sacred obstacles, or all kinds of the other inferences whatsoever they may be. Buddhism pointed out all kinds of sufferings. They're simply the state of being. So, suffering, without recognizing the nature of it, then they could bring about all kinds of harm and pain into our life. Let it be our work or our family life and so on and so forth. And sometimes we don't even want to move when we're ill. But if we can use this illness onto our path of enlightenment, in fact, it could bring us great merit, because without such illness, you probably would never think about practice. So if you really want to accumulate merit, if you really want to purify and pacify your obscurations, then you should practice diligently. Illness is the gate of practice that purifies obstacles. That's the first thing that we're going to cover. And then the second thing we're going to cover is that we should know that illness is no other than our guru. Whenever you get ill, you should think, oh, here is my guru. And then thirdly, you should know that illness is the companion on practice. Therefore, one should engage in the practice of the 6 paramitas. These are the 3 aspects we're going to study in this particular text. So, illness is meritorious, illness is no other than the guru, and illness is the companion on the practice of 6 paramitas. So let's look at the first one. In samsara, there are various vast sufferings. Within samsara, in the 6 realms, it is fused with all kinds of sufferings. I think majority of you who are living here in Larongar and do not really care to listen to news, you probably have no idea of all kinds of suffering that's happening in the world right now. But if you do pay some attention to the news, you probably would generate a sense of compassion and empathy to people who are suffering from all kinds of suffering nowadays. Stated in the 400 verses of Madhyamika, it says that all sentient beings look for happiness, but happiness is indeed very difficult to gain. Therefore, the beings in this world are followed and flooded by all kinds of sufferings, one after another, constantly torture the sentient beings living in this world. Also stated in the Lotus Sutra, it says that the three realms has no place that is completely at ease. It is just like a house on fire that is filled with all kinds of sufferings. It is indeed horrid. I'm not sure if you've ever visited a hospital. Whenever you go to hospital, it seems like the whole world is ill. Everyone has some kind of sickness. If you go to the particular department, it seems that everyone has that particular type of sickness. Involuntarily took birth in this samsara due to our karma. We don't contemplate the suffering when there are temporary happiness. The happiness are so temporary, and we are very indulged in those. Let it be beauty or social status or wealth or any kinds of temporary happiness. Whenever we have those kinds of temporary experiences of happiness, that stops us from thinking and contemplate about suffering or the downfalls of samsara. When we're indulged in those happy experiences, we ourselves can't practice to benefit ourselves. Rather, we would indulge in laziness and indolence. At such times, suffering of illness can dispel mistakes such as laziness and arrogance. Whenever you're ill, you won't have those indolence or illness anymore, or arrogance anymore. When people get ill, sometimes they're very encouraged to practice more diligently. For example, when people get to know that they got cancer and they only have 3 months to live, or when they get COVID, maybe very severe COVID, then the arrogant or the indolent kind of people, they would restart they will rethink about their life and the meaning of life, and then they would engage in diligent practice. So whenever we view illness, we should see illness in such a way. So illness has such a function that could lead us to contemplate about the truth of life. Many people, especially the ones who had never practiced on the spiritual path or the Dharma in general, they don't know what impermanence is. They probably had never even contemplated upon impermanence. Whenever they get ill, they would realize what's really important. For example, they would know that, when I'm ill, I finally realize that wealth really doesn't matter that much anymore. So illness can help one to see through all kinds of veils in life and see the truth of life. Therefore, I think illness can be very helpful to the practitioners because illness can help us to engage in practice. But for non-practitioners, illness wouldn't bring them any benefits. According to Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it says that harm and suffering has various merits because it could dispel arrogance and would help the practitioner to generate a sense of renunciation. This is very similar to turning suffering and happiness onto the path of enlightenment, as well as the 37 practices of Bodhisattva. This year, I think we should engage a lot of effort and time in studying 37 stanzas. Over here, it says that the merit of illness is that it could help the practitioners to give rise to the mind of renunciation and dispel all kinds of arrogance. It is just like when one is ill, then and one has to go through an operation. Sometimes we also need that kind of operation or surgery for our spiritual practice as well. A surgery and an operation may seem to be very forceful. However, such kind of forceful method can bring us great merit as well, or great benefit as well. According to Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it says that without harm, without suffering, one would not generate the mind of renunciation. Without suffering, we don't generate the sense of renunciation from samsara. Whenever we get ill and whenever we suffer, then we generate the mind of renunciation. So over here it says that by relying on suffering, then we would generate the mind of renunciation from samsara. I think for the majority of us, what's really important is to generate the mind of renunciation. According to the three principal aspects of the path, it also states that the most important aspect is to generate the mind of renunciation. Therefore, over here, by relying on illness, if we can generate the mind of renunciation and wanting to part from samsara and wanting to tread on the path of enlightenment with great bravery, in this sense, illness is really meaningful. According to the Contemplation of Mind Sutra, it says that the body harbors all kinds of suffering. However, if we can practice diligently upon renunciation, then attaining enlightenment is possible. Therefore, we can see that illness can help us to generate that renunciation. This is quite important because without illness, many of you probably could never generate the mind of renunciation at all. I know many of our fellow practitioners who generated renunciation because they suffered from some grave illness or they went through some surgery or operations. But then when we look back, we will see that how illness really helped us to tread onto this path. So, though that illness happens to us unwillingly. However, from another aspect, it definitely helps us to tread on the path of enlightenment. After a grave illness, you would be able to see through the veils of life more clearly. You would be able to see that the wealth and fame and all of those things in life are really nothing substantial. Therefore, you would turn your mind onto the path of enlightenment, and eventually you would be able to attain liberation. So, through illness and the guidance of a genuine teacher, a sense of genuine renunciation can be generated, and then illness is truly meaningful. Let's finish this part today. There's a small passage here. Especially according to many sutras and the various Tripitakas, it is stated again and again that in the world of Shakyamuni Buddha, which is the Saha world that is full of all kinds of disputes, Shakyamuni Buddha, because of his aspiration, this world is a Saha world, this imperfect world. It is an impure world, unlike many other Buddhas. They made the aspiration to create a pure land. But Shakyamuni Buddha's world is an impure land. In this land, there are all kinds of sufferings. The suffering of heat in summer, of cold in winter, of headache, of high altitude sickness, of bad road, all kinds of sufferings. Nowadays, I think Larongar has already become so much better in terms of infrastructures. I think in the past, Larongar can be considered as the Sahara world of the Sahara world of the Sahara worlds. But in this world, we can see people suffer from all kinds of illness, such as headache, such as foot-ache, such as fear, such as the obstacles because of the tigers, the wolves, and so on and so forth. There are so many things that could create suffering. But in Pure Lands of the other Buddhas, there is no such imperfections and there is no such sufferings at all. However, when you look at those sufferings, when you look at the other aspect of suffering, you would be able to see that just by having a mere headache, such kind of suffering can purify the karma of suffering in hell realm. According to the Sutra of the Questions of Brahma Vishesastin, it says that the bodhisattvas who are born in this land shouldn't be worried or have any kinds of suffering or sadness. Why is that? It is because in this Saha world, even by simply having a little bit of a headache, can purify the negative deeds that could have lead one into the lower realms. So from one aspect, of course, it's not that great that we're living in this world, that we're reborn into this world. However, from a different aspect, by the aspiration of the Buddha, we would be able to purify all kinds of potential negative fruitions by simply suffering from minor sufferings. We have all kinds of suffering. Sometimes we couldn't fall asleep. Sometimes we get suffering of hunger, of thirst, and so on and so forth. But when I look around, I see that all of you look very good. It seems that you don't have any suffering at all. But make sure after you're eating a lot, you need to exercise, otherwise you gain weight. Over here it says that the bodhisattvas who have the great aspiration to attain Buddhahood very quickly, they would take rebirth over here. Because the Buddha, because of his aspiration, this particular world is an impure land. But bodhisattvas, because they want to attain enlightenment as quickly as possible, therefore they would take rebirth specifically in this impure land so that they can attain enlightenment quickly. Just like how people would first work in difficult areas first, and then later they can return to get a promotion and then eventually be able to get a higher position. We see that people nowadays, they volunteer themselves to difficult areas or areas with harsh situations first, and then eventually they'll be able to gain more experience and then get higher positions after returning. So similarly, the bodhisattvas, in order to fulfill their merits and be able to attain Buddhahood quickly, they specifically take rebirth in this impure land. The great bodhisattvas facing all kinds of calamities and disasters, they specifically wanting to choose this area for that reason. I'm sure we encounter all kinds of things, especially during the pandemic. For the practitioners, I heard that many of our practitioners really enjoyed staying indoor during the pandemic lockdowns. Of course, you do need some of the necessities of living, such as food and so on and so forth. But other than that, many people really enjoyed this opportunity to finally engage in their practice and to do a retreat, unlike the ordinary beings that they feel very much trapped. So the great bodhisattvas, after taking rebirth over here, they would be able to quickly fulfill the accumulation of the merit in order to gain great power. Also would be able to gain great power of maturing the sentient beings and gain the great power so that they can build their Pure Lands. The bodhisattvas, they have to specifically take rebirth in this impure land, but we ourselves, we don't even need to do that. We are already born here. We are the indigenous Saha world beings. The bodhisattvas, they specifically want to immigrate to this land to be able to fulfill their aspiration. But look at us. We're so afraid of getting ill. We're so afraid of facing the harsh situations. So after studying this, we should be able to see that, well, with this illness, we can definitely purify all kinds of illness from the past. Therefore, illness is not that bad. If you remember when we studied Vimalakirti Sutra, many disciples of the Buddha went to see him and asked how he is in his illness. And Vimalakirti answered the questions in such a skillful way by saying that, because the sentient beings are ill, therefore I am ill. My illness is out of great compassion. So whenever we get ill, we should also contemplate in such a way. If people were to ask you, well, how is your illness? Are you feeling better? Then that's a good opportunity for you to give them a teaching, to give them some pith instruction that you can give when you're ill. According to the question of Brahma Vishesa Sentin, it says that in this Saha world that is full of all kinds of afflictions, if one can bear the unbearable and have the capacity to give teachings of such to the others, this is the most supreme merit. I understand everyone has to go through lots of difficulties in this world. You have to cook for yourself, and you have to endure all kinds of difficulties. On one hand, yes, it takes lots of effort, and there are lots of hardship that we have to go through. But I'm sure it's definitely twofold. The good and the bad, they're twofold. We can't really just see it from one extreme, but not the other. To the worldly beings, they only see it one-sidedly. They only see one aspect of it. For example, the wealthy people, from the worldly beings' point of view, it's wonderful. They have money, they can get everything. However, from the other point of view, they're arrogant. So there's always a twofold aspect to one situation. That is why the bodhisattvas specifically pick this impure world to take rebirth, to practice That is why it says that the bodhisattvas, they would also manifest themselves as being ill. Lots of great masters, they also appear to be ill as well, such as Mipa Rinpoche. In the biography, he told his disciples, saying that I am a bodhisattva, I am here to benefit sentient beings. However, because of my physical body as well as the merit of the sentient beings, I am not able to benefit sentient beings anymore at this time. Some of the great masters of the past, they specifically would appear to be ill so that the sentient beings would learn lesson from them. And then over here it states that therefore by relying on our illness, it would definitely be able to purify all kinds of illness that's been accumulated for past lifetimes. For that reason, we should be joyous. By simply suffering from some minor illness, it could pacify a lot of grave negative deeds that we've accumulated, such as having a headache would be able to pacify the negative deeds that could lead us to the maturation of grave negative duration. When I had the surgeries, let it be the big surgery or a small surgery, I would chant mantras at the beginning and then practice. And then throughout, because I am not conscious, but at the end of it, I would practice the dedication of merit when I slowly gain my conscious back. When I started to wake up, unlike the mundane beings who would ask, well, why me? Why do I have to take surgery? Why everyone else is healthy? But we should practice in such a way, as practitioners, we should practice in such a way that I am offering my body to the other sentient beings, the Rakshas who really want to take my body, then go ahead, take it. We should practice it in this way. Lots of the non-humans, the Rakshas, they really want to have your body and then just offer it. In this way, we would be able to loosen our attachments and we would be able to purify our obstacles and we would be able to accumulate myriads of merits as well. So for the negative karmas that we've been accumulating for past lifetimes can get purified through our illness. Therefore, we should generate the mind of joy, a joyful mind. A joyful mind doesn't mean that I'm so happy. It means that our mind is finally in sync with the Dharma. We finally understand why illness has merit. If you remember, after studying turning suffering and happiness onto the path of enlightenment, many practitioners told me that they feel very happy, very joyful. And they know what to do when happiness and suffering happens in their life. And those path instructions cannot be received in mundane schools. Therefore, we should be joyful at this time after receiving this path instruction. So next time when you get ill, you can tell others, oh, I have a good news. I got cancer. And then you can tell others, I have a good news. I have some good news. My doctor told me that I only have a few months to live. And then as Sangha member, you should say that, oh, I rejoice. I wish I can practice the same way as you do. Of course, this is for the good practitioners.
做不了的这个事情呢，短短的一个疾病当中的话呢，就可
But
能
we
会
can
完成。
practice
这
even
一点呢
in
我们就是
the
在座的
minor
各位啊
illness as
大
well,
家都好好
because such
想一
minor
想
illness
就是
can
生
help
病的
us
话
to
呢，有一个
accumulate
共
great
的，这一
merits
点
and
就是
purify
大家一定
great
要就是共鸣一下，
obstacles.
好吧？
So
就简
we
单
should
讲到
stop
这里。
here today.
这个咱们别进先，到时再看。 오이 수는 도이 단체 zubagne 톱나 니베 자나 파셰 제가 난지 라랑 쳐바 저범 손에 줘봐 줘